Hi, boys and girls. We're going to be reading a chapter from World Rivers today. So far, you should have watched chapters 1 and 2, and I had videos of Mrs. Campbell going through those chapters, but I'm going to go through chapter 3 with you today. So far, you have learned about several rivers. There's the Nile River in Egypt, the longest river in the world. There's the Yellow River, which is in China, that has a lot of silt that's carried around in the river. We also have the Yangtze River, also in China, rushing through those mountains. You would have read also about the Indus River. Now, the Indus River is in Tibet in India. And as you can see here, it says 4,500 years ago, people living along the Indus River, they built the city of Mohenjo-Daro with its great baths. And so it went into that Mohenjo-Daro bath. And finally, the Ganga River. Now, the Ganga River is in India, and we had a conversation about this in class, and I'd love for you all to talk to your parents about it if any of them have been to the Ganga River, and maybe some of you have too, with water that's considered holy because it is so beneficial to the people who live in this area. It helps the crops, and it really supplements this area that would otherwise be far too dry. So it is considered holy by the Hindu religion. So we're going to read chapter 3 today. We have a river in Australia we're going to be learning about. And over here on the map, let's point out where Australia is. So Australia is the continent southeast of Asia, and it is one of the smallest continents. And so actually, need to look at it's not smaller than Europe, I think. But so Australia has something called the Murray River that we're going to be learning about today, and this is what the land looks like in Australia that we're going to talk about. Okay, so the book is also available online that you can read along if you want to follow. Now, the Murray River is the longest river in Australia. It is also a popular one for vacations. To really see this river, you need to be high up in the sky. Where do you want to start exploring the Murray River? Your pilot asks. Start at the beginning, please, is your answer. Let's go to the source of the river. Now, remember, the source is where a river begins. Often, a river's source is a tiny trickle of water hidden away in hills or mountains. So even the widest, longest rivers all have to start somewhere at some source. And sometimes a source can begin as just a teeny tiny trickle as it gets wider and the water rushes more and more. Now, the pilot turns the plane toward the southeastern corner of Australia. The plane lands on an unpaved strip of grass. You are now in what's called the Great Dividing Range. These are Australia's highest mountains. The source of the Murray River is near Australia's highest peak, called Mount Kosciuszko. Can you try that? Mount Kosciuszko. In the spring, melting snow flows down the hillsides and adds waters to the stream below. You take a good look at the mountains before boarding the small plane again. Watch carefully below, the pilot says. Soon, the river will really look like a river. The plane winds along between mountains, and soon you see a dark line on the ground below. The trickle of water at the river's source has become a river. After a while, another large river seems to flow into the Murray River. This is the Darling River. Now, these two, and some of you might be thinking of, it's kind of a term of endearment, but also in the book Peter Pan, you know about the Darlings. So for those of you who read Peter Pan last year in second grade, you would know that. Now, these two rivers drain the whole southeastern part of Australia. Experts use the term drainage. Can you say drainage? Think of like a kitchen drain in the sink. Drainage basin to describe the whole area drained by a main river and other connected rivers. This is an aerial view of above the Murray River and shows how it weaves through all of this farmland and it provides water to all of these plants. Now, parts of the Murray River in Australia have dried up at least 3 times, is your little fun fact. Which means there are parts where the river is just dry in a specific area, and then it has to start filling up to flow over that area again. Make sure your seatbelt is fastened, the pilot says. We're going to land and take a closer look at the Murray River. Now you are on the ground alongside the river. The air is warm and dry. You see fields full of melons. There are orchards full of orange trees and vineyards with grapes growing on the vines. The fruits look juicy and sweet. A vineyard, by the way, is a place where grapes are grown, and we don't have a picture of that. But then also we've got orchard. An orchard is a spot where certain fruit will grow on trees. Now, water from the Murray River is used by farmers for irrigation. Remember that word, irrigation? Now, irrigation is when water is transferred from one spot to the other. Some of you might have sprinkler systems in your home. So, like in your front yard, maybe you've got sprinklers so that your grass is getting water even during a time of year that we don't have much rain. This especially happens in areas that don't have as much rain. So the hot summers are good for growing crops, but the crops need plenty of water in the heat. So do you, meaning us as people. The juice and water the pilot brought along are refreshing. As you drink, you admire the sheep and cattle eating the green grass in the pasture, which is land that is set aside for animals like cows and horses just to graze. Let's go to the mouth of the river now, the pilot says. That's where the river ends and its water empties into the ocean. So source is where it starts and it flows and it ends at the mouth. And then that's where it opens out into the ocean and the water just pours out there. As you follow the river's path, you see what appears to be lakes below. Some are small, but some are quite large. In fact, these bodies of water are man-made lakes or reservoirs. They are made by dams that hold back or block the Murray River. Do you remember hearing about, specifically it was with the Yangtze River, that they had dams in place to control the water? It's like a wall, man-made wall, to create a lake or to stop it somehow, stop that water. So the dams cause the river to back up and flood a large area to create reservoirs. So it stops that river from rushing forward, the river water from rushing forward. From the plane, you can see sailboats, houseboats, and canoes on them. I like to come here with my wife and daughters on vacation, the pilot says. We rent a houseboat to live on for a week or 2. We like to swim and fish. Sometimes we go to one of the nature parks where we can see pelicans, kangaroos, and parrots. Sorry about that. Sounds cool, you say. The pilot turns the plane toward home. You sit back and relax as you fly up in a beautiful, clear sky. Who wants to go to Australia now after seeing this? I do. That looks beautiful. Okay, that's chapter 3. You can take notes on the Murray River and the Darling River based off of what you see posted on Bright Thinker for that part of your interactive notebook. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.